Okay. 11-year-old daughter, IQ is 62. Number one, I wouldn't put a lot of stock in that IQ score. All right, I wouldn't. And I don't know your child, but I'm just telling you that anytime I see ADHD, ODD, sensory general mood disorders, I just, along with behavior, I just don't know. It seems like to me that there's some underlying academic issues and achievement issues to the point where I'm not convinced that the IQ score is going to be reliable based upon some of the other things that I would want to have them ruled out before, I allowed a school system to try to pigeonhole my kid with a 62 IQ. Now look, my own child is an example. All right, she's 16 now. She's had IQ scores, done in the past, and they've always bottomed out in the 30s. Now, according to everybody who believes in and ascribes to IQ scores, my daughter would be considered severely cognitively disabled. Well, she's not, but IQ measures they were not intended for most disabilities. They just weren't. And at that point, I just think that they're an imperfect instrument being used by imperfect people and frequently end up with imperfect results. So I point that out because that was the first glaring thing that popped out at me. Because a lot of the behavioral responses in your child are going to correspond over to probably academic demands or other aspects of her school day that she's quite cognizant that she can't do or has difficulty doing. And then you have adults responding to her responses, and then you got this cycle that you're caught in. And, being that a child that has little to no control over their world when they're going into a school, all right? That's going to be, in my viewpoint, a natural response. And so I take more of a cautionary approach in how I understand your concern that you don't want to lose your child into the mental health care system. Nobody does. All right. And I think it's an area that's being overused. First of all, the second thing is that it's being completely underserved, and I don't think that it's being served even as is with enough competence and a variety of understanding to where it's having the benefit that it should have. All right, so there is a bunch of problems when it comes to getting pegged with a mental health diagnosis right now. I mean, you got a big stigma, that is going to be glaringly obvious anytime you're dealing with a public school or just your community in general. So I understand what you're saying. Now, out of curiosity, I'm just wondering if you have ruled out high-functioning autism or Asperger's for your child, being that there's components and some of the other diagnoses that I see to where it would be worth trying to get that ruled out. If you have a daughter, they frequently fly under radars with regards to autism diagnosis, high functioning, because they have strengths and areas, and the ADOS, I mean, it primarily impacts boys in high numbers. And so therefore you can understand the diagnostics sort of cater to that. And so if you have a girl that has natural strengths in areas where boys do not, then she could have been missed, along the way. And then manifesting in a different way and then pegged with a mental health. I'm just throwing things out there. I'm just saying that maybe you need to go get a fresh perspective from a good neuropsychologist, clinical psychologist that is willing to look at your child with a fresh set of eyes. Because most of this stuff is a building block on prior diagnoses, okay? But I'm guessing there's going to be some academic difficulties in there that are contributing to some of the behaviors. So they just did a behavioral observation 30 days, not 60. And quite frankly, some of these states, where they say, well, we need 60 days of observations as opposed to 30. I'm not one of these people that ascribe to that. I find some of it is such a waste of time. Because you're wasting 30 days. You're only wasting 30 days as opposed to 60 days. That's almost a quarter. Okay? There's only 4 quarters in a year. And 60 days is 1 month shy of a quarter, meaning you only have 3 left. An entire calendar year. And in a school year is 9 months with a lot of breaks in between. So it's really 8 months if you take out all the breaks. Yeah, and so when you're sitting there taking 60 days of that to do an observation and things are not improving, then yeah, I just think it's an individual situation to where if they're able to extrapolate what they need to create a good plan and a good set of services, then 30 days is what you need. I don't even believe it takes that long, quite frankly. But to each their own, all right? And sometimes it does take that long if you're really trying to understand the functions of behavior, all right? That's why you get some really good people in there that are like a very good, competent and ethical behavior analyst, and they would be able to pinpoint that. Okay, they want to send her to a specific behavioral bridging school for 1 to 2 years. Now, my question is, anytime a school is saying, well, we want to send the child here, why? Tell me what makes that place so special. Tell me what services that are available over there that cannot be provided with some, contracted third-party services through a very good behavioral, let's say a behavior analyst, training staff to competency toward my child's program. Why can't we do that here? What makes that place so awesome? And then, are there general education peers there? Are there non-disabled peers at this location? Oh, there's not. Okay. Well, you see where those, and I don't necessarily have a problem with day treatment programs or therapeutic settings. I don't. But this is my thing. After that 1 year, after that 2 years, what genius plan do they have to transition her back? And if she has these disabilities and if she has these issues, then a lot of our kids become good therapy kids in the environments where they are, and they don't do well generalizing. And if you look at and I hate to bring this up, but I mean, this is a good point. All right, our prison system is not a rehabilitative system. And people go, they come out and no, our recidivism rate for crime in this country is horrible. They are not places where people get better. This is where we lock people up. We don't give them skills. And depending on what the crime is, that's not where they need to be. What, so they can become better criminals? They can sit there and in some situations, and as I relate this over too, so in these very special schools and in these very special places that have these very special programs, I just have major questions in my mind as to how that translates back into the public school or a charter school. If you need them there for a year or 2 years, then how does that relate over to them transitioning back around typical peers? Or can you accomplish that through a little bit more elbow grease and hard work here instead of kicking it and going, well, we'll just spend the money to pay for tuition over here, instead of getting yourself to the point as an education system with a highly competent staff and spend the money here instead of removing the child. That's always my question mark. I just do not understand why that isn't the original analysis. And I have a lot of cases to where I fight to keep kids in these environments, because I'm not that sold on these day treatment programs. Any more than I am these reading interventionist locations. If they can't be provided inside the school, then please, I am open-minded. Explain it to me. But if you cannot answer my questions in return, sorry. What makes your place so special? Does it have general education peers? How are we going to address those things? How are we going to transition my child back after her 1 year or 2 years, which always tends to add up to 3 and 4, because it's like a Roach Motel. It's like Hotel California. You can check in, you can't check out. And so I have a very, very cautionary approach about these places for that reason, because I believe a public school can do it, and they've done it and shown that they can do it in multiple situations with my own child and all of my clients. And I don't like to let people off the hook when that's the entire point of the IDEA and special education services. And there's plenty of professionals, third-party professionals, that can be contracted with to make sure that the school environment is exactly what your child needs. But I'm just curious about the diagnosis, just to throw that out there.